People in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up today, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we are pleased to deliver a very timely episode as we delve into the reopening of the concert touring and large-scale festival market. More on that in a moment. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Craig Campbell. A graduate of MTSU's Recording Industry Management program, Craig's worked for publicity and music video promotion company Aristo Media for 9 years before being hired at Sony Music Nashville to head publicity for Epic Records. Over the next 14 years, he rose to the position of VP, Press and Publicity for the company, and was an integral part of the teams that helped catapult the careers of the Dixie Chicks, Montgomery Gentry, Patti Loveless, Gretchen Wilson, Miranda Lambert, and many others. He opened Campbell Entertainment Group in January of 2008 and currently handles publicity for Gretchen Wilson, 38 Special, Tennille Arts, CJ Solar, and corporate clients such as Granddaddy Mim's Moonshine, Sand Jam, Gulf Coast Jam, and the Country Music Cruise. He also manages the Swan Brothers, CJ Solar, and piano virtuoso Corey Caudill. Welcome, Craig. So glad you're with us.
Impressive. Be here.
And joining Craig as today's featured guest is Rendy Lovelady. Rendy has launched the careers of some of popular music's most renowned artists while simultaneously achieving his own personal visions and goals as an astute and successful entrepreneur. For 13 years, he worked in various roles for some of rock's top artists, including Van Halen, Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Michael Sweet, and Stryper. He represented multi-platinum modern rock band Jars of Clay and was a driving force in discovering, managing, and breaking multi-platinum selling and Grammy award-winning group Little Big Town. He has represented Season 8 American Idol finalist Danny Gokey, Marty Stewart, Michael O'Brien, Shelley Fairchild, Love and Theft, Justified, Floored, and currently represents beach favorites Heritage. Rendy began producing Tennessee River Jam and formed mega music festivals Bama Jam, Pepsi Gulf Coast Jam, Sand Jam, and Spring Jam. The 8th annual Pepsi Gulf Coast Jam just went down June 4th through 6th in Panama City Beach and was the first large-scale music festival to play in the U.S. since March of last year. And we look forward to hearing all about that and the lessons that Rendy can share with the rest of the concert industry. Please welcome these two rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Take it away, Craig.
Wow, that was impressive.
I wish my mom was on here so she could have heard that intro so she could see that I have a job. My wife is actually on, so she knows.
She's the best person in the room.
Tom, thanks for having us. The timing on this is great because we did just finish Pepsi Gulf Coast Jam. And we'll get into that a lot more in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to, Rendy's been one of my best friends for 20 some years. And we work our butts off for that week of the festivals, but we also have a lot of fun together. So it's fun to be able to do this with Rendy. So let me start with a little background, Rendy.
Oh no. You
Including,
just cut to the chase. I'm old.
um, your original background, you went to seminary.
I did.
Yeah. And then somehow you got into the music business. How did you go from that to music?
It was a long night involving a lot of bourbon. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I am a man of strong belief and faith. So that hasn't ever changed. I realized that it was not my place to work in the church because honestly, I had too big of a temper and I don't do well with church members telling me not to do things or to do things. So just cutting the chase and probably not getting myself in a lot of trouble. It was best for me. And then I started working in the music business after I'd gotten my master's degree and felt like it was definitely where I needed to be, my calling in life.
But it actually, it started before that, right? You were in high school working with some pretty notorious people.
I did. I did. I started working at the Sanger Theater when I was a kid. My mom and dad are from New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, born and raised there. And I started working at the Sanger for Charlie and Louis Messina, which Louis Messina, obviously AEG and the world around, he's there still. But I started working with them on doing concerts at the Sanger, sweeping the floors, pulling cables, doing whatever I could do just to keep in the business and be around it. And as I grew up, I basically reached a point where I played college ball and I went into college and did all that stuff and played that football world and realized that wasn't for me. And I came back to New Orleans and the Messina brothers offered me a chance to be working for Messina Presents and Pace Concerts back then to be their concert rep, to where I represented them with the artist that was working. So it kind of gave me my start and my play, which, am I getting ahead of you, Craig, or should I just keep going?
No, that's good.
So I could just going from playing ball to working in the concert industry. And then certain situations changed in the Van Halen world, which opened up a door for me to be a part of that world for a very long time and very, very close to that system. And then while you work in the hair world, you kind of go around from different artists. As one's touring, one's not touring, you switch over to another artist. And that's how I got into the Bon Jovi and Motley Crue world. So, my road world was basically my first life in this business, is basically going from city to city as a tour manager, promotions, production, whatever needed to be done at that time.
Right.
So did I skip your whole story?
No, that's perfect. Whenever you use the names Bon Jovi, Van Halen, Motley Crue,
and seminary,
not quite that, but everybody gets an image, especially a backstage image of those bands. And I know there's a lot you can't talk about. Any one story that kind of sticks out to you?
Just a lot of times you hear all the fluff. You don't see the personalized stories of people walking off stage and having a guitar around their neck and seeing a kid standing next to the barricade and walking over and handing a guitar to a kid or a pick or a personal touch with somebody that, honestly becomes priceless, because then they become fans for life. I've seen Eddie do it. I've seen Richie do it. I've seen, Nikki do it. People see the fluff of the 80s and 90s and see this big show. And it was definitely a big show and it was definitely a big party, but there was a whole lot of tenderness that went into kids and went into teenagers on a, non-publicized side of the story where they actually cared about people. And,
right.
It's sad that, it's more important how many people Tommy Lee slept with than it was how many times he walked off stage and handed a drumstick to somebody and patted him on the head, and that kid became a drummer in his future life. So right. A lot of that's kind of stuff. I'm a sentimental kind of guy, so that meant a lot to me.
No, I love that. I like hearing that more than the other stories anyway. That was last week or the week before last at Gulf Coast Jam. There was a little girl on the side of the stage, and it was a similar situation where Paisley was performing, was the headliner Saturday night, and she wanted her hat autographed. He autographed her hat and then handed her his guitar.
It blew her mind. And
Yeah.
I actually know the little girl's mama.
Do you?
She was blown away, and she is now Brad Paisley's biggest fan.
Yeah.
Those kind of things you sow and reap in life, and I believe in sowing in young people's life. I believe you reap it in your children. You believe you reap it in you, and I think that kind of stuff. I mean, it was a big night. It was a big night for her.
Yeah, a big night for a lot of people. All right, from there, somehow you transitioned back into the Christian world in management. How did that happen?
Well, I mean, it really didn't happen on purpose, and yet it was completely on purpose. I was a man of faith and had been around the rock world, and the boys from Striper had basically come into my life, and Michael, and they were my first opportunity to manage a big time. Back in the 80s, they were huge. And but they also wanted to have a person that represented them that was a believer as well. And I think my faith played a lot into the decision to move forward with those guys. And coming off the road as a tour manager, I was very aware of unions and dealing with record labels. And I mean, a tour manager becomes that mediator between the artist and the rest of the world, and a lot of times representing the manager itself. So it was a perfect scenario for me to walk into a management position. And I mean, honestly, these guys were hitting 15 and 20,000 people a night on the road, and had huge success, and had a lot of internal situations that needed help. And it just played into my knowledge and my desire. So ended up working with them, and we were out on the road one night, and it was a place that there wasn't any beer to go get after the show, and we ended up at a coffee house, and I was literally sitting there, and Michael was right next to me, lead singer was next to me, and this little 4-person ensemble was playing 2 acoustic guitars, a accordion, and a lead singer, and they were playing in a coffee house, and I was blown away. And I actually went up and signed a deal with these guys with a napkin, which turned out to be Jars of Clay. So, I mean, it was kind of how the path turned that way. And I kind of started there, and I always kind of had one foot in the rock world and one foot in the Christian world at the same time. And kind of was that guy, became known as that guy that could manage both sides of the world and build at that point. Because the funny thing was, Jars of Clay's first single was a top 5 single on 6 different formats, with a song about Noah and the Ark, and the rock world had no clue it was a Christian band, which I never really figured that one out. But they did, and did extremely well, and it was a great success story that obviously lasted many, many, many years. So, right. But from there, it just kind of began to blossom. I was that rock guy that had his foot in the Christian world, and I mean, I had tons of opportunities after that to expand. I actually managed one of Christian world's biggest artists, Carmen, and played. I'll never forget sitting in Madison Square Garden. I've been there 100 times before with every other artist I'd been at, but I'd never sold out Madison Square Garden in the round with anybody in my career but Carmen. So there was just a lot of different ways to do it, but it was a great start in the management field. Was.
Right. And from there, you kind of took one foot and put a few toes in the country world.
It was true, because I mean, honestly, it was even through the Christian world that I met Karen and Kimberly with Little Big Town. Karen and Kimberly came to my office one day and said, I want to be a part of the country world, and I want to try to do this. Will you work with us? So we began the process of building Little Big Town. And so technically it was through the Christian business, and Karen was singing with a group called Truth at the time, which is a traveling Christian group that travels around the country. And from there, I just kind of built a relationship with them and started building their country career. Of course, it was hard to break into the old boys club there in Nashville, because I was that guy that at the time I had long hair and slicked my hair back and rode a Harley and just kind of didn't have the good old boy mentality, had the good old boy heart, but just didn't have the relationships. So I'll never forget, I'd gone to leadership music, and I was a part of the leadership music class. And I literally brought Little Big Town to leadership music and had them walk in and sing as my first country artist that I managed. And everybody in that room knew about my path and the struggles and the frustrations of breaking in the good old boys club. And their Little Big Town played its first little mini concert for all the executives in the room, and the rest was history. So
I do have to say that the time we met was, Tom, I don't know if you know Jack Lehmeyer. Did you know Jack?
great guy.
Jack was the
Fortunes.
head of promotion for CBS Records, then Sony, Epic, and anything to do with the Sony CBS family. He actually started at the label 2 months before I was born. That's how long he was with the company. But he was head of promotion, and Rendy brought Little Big Town into Jack's office to sing for a bunch of the staff. I don't think they were even signed yet. And,
No,
and everybody, including, was crying hearing these four angels sing the kind of harmonies that they do. And that's where we first met, was in Jack Lehmeyer's office. All those
truth.
years ago.
And then look where we are now.
Yeah. So next, you were working with Daryl Worley, and was it with Daryl that you started into festivals with the Tennessee River Run, or had you done festivals before that one?
No, I mean, I'd done it as an artist manager and as a tour manager, but Daryl had a vision of, he had a cancer treatment center that he had the vision to build in his hometown of Savannah, Tennessee. And we were looking for ways to raise funds to help fund this cancer treatment center. And his, at the time, previous manager, he had actually started it before I did and had done an amazing job at building it. But I think when I kind of came in, we began to build it from a broader perspective, and we began to focus in on building the cancer treatment center. And that's where I got my start in the festival business. I began to call in favors and artists that I'd worked with other artists, and just trying to get people to come and give a part of it. And it built into, I mean, it was probably, we was running about 12,000 people a night, and it was a, multi-night thing. And it was kind of a small scale, but without question, it started me down the process of learning how the festival business operates and how the complexity of the festival business operated. And that being a nonprofit business specifically showed me how to come at it from a different perspective compared to being in a for-profit business. And it helped me learn from the inside out. So there's no question. I think it's still going. I haven't managed Daryl in a couple of years, but I think they're still doing it. I obviously turned my world into full-time festival business when I turned into Bama Jam. So it's where it started there.
Right. So that's probably the first time you had to deal with cities. You had to deal over there. You had to deal with the state because you were in a state park.
Yep.
What were some of those challenges?
Is anybody listening? Because I might get in trouble if I say all this stuff. The reality is you become a politician because you're playing as much to do with politics as you are to do with business. You'd figure it'd just be like a concert and doing a show, but the reality is, because you're doing a show in a city that's a multiple day city, you're having to deal with all the different perspectives of all the different politicians. Having, in this case, Daryl being a resident of Savannah, it also helped me to deal with the politicians since he grew up with them, and he was also the local hero. But it definitely, city councilman, I mean, you had everything from the garbage collector that had an opinion on how often he needs to come by and pick up the garbage, to the state park, like you said, because we did our show at the state park, and they have rules and guidelines and regulations they had to follow. And it was a great place to start, because there was a lot less pressure to make a profit than there was to have an event. So that definitely made it easier to deal with. But man, as it got bigger and towards the end, it became, everybody wanted to own it, so to speak, politically, and it wanted to be their idea. And the reality is, it just became complicated. And bless Daryl's heart, he had to sit in the hot seat half the time, because I'd go piss people off and he'd have to go make peace. And I have a reputation of being kind of speaking my mind as it is. So the reality is that I probably made more trouble for Daryl. Good news is he loved me. So because he loved me, he kind of covered me. But it becomes a political nightmare, if you might have it. And especially in a small town like Savannah. But it was definitely cool. I owe a lot of it to whatever you want to call my knowledge of what I do now to him. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. And you do have several of us surrounding you now that protect you from.
You just keep my mouth shut. That's what you do, Craig. Just want to say it.
Yeah. All right. Then you head south to nowhere, Alabama.
Literally.
Yeah.
Enterprise, Alabama. Yep. Bama Jam became a work in progress. It grew real fast, because it was a camping festival, which brings in all kinds of people. It was a country camping festival, but at Bama Jam, we did all kinds of music. I definitely learned that more as an artist manager at first, and because I would bring artists there and would come in from the back door and worked it that way. But I had a situation happen in the festival in 2010, and there was a change that was made, and I got asked to come in and begin to produce the event. So I did the last 4 years of the event, and it was extremely good. It was a learning and process to deal with at a different level. I mean, you bring people to one small area that houses, 25, 30,000 people. And with a camping festival, you live with them all the time. They don't go home. They don't take a break. They start drinking on Friday and they don't stop until Sunday night at midnight, when you say, okay, y'all go home now. We're done with you. But it was a great time. The festival business in Alabama became very political for me, because it was the owners of the property and quite frankly, the co-owner of the event was trying to build a casino at the same time, and things began to get in a mess, let's just call it that way. And it became very complicated, because one agenda began to bleed to the other agenda, and investors began to bleed into other investors, and it got to be a mess. But unfortunately, it reached a point in 2012 where we had our last event. But I will never forget it. I mean, it was the next phase into my career and next phase into learning about festivals. And I'll say this for all of you people in the music business from different, ranks of life. One thing good about being in a festival business, when your artist gets all pissy, you can say, go see your manager. It's not my problem. And that's where I learned that in Bama Jam, because, we had multiple stages. That was a whole nother experience. We had 5 stages, and again, we went 24 hours a day for 3 days, and you just kind of learned to let the camping world take care of itself, and you just kind of turned your eyes and looked away and hoped for the best. And then it was a learning experience without question. Dealing with the sheriff waiting outside as people drove out with his police cars and pulling people over, and just because he had an agenda he wanted to have.
Wow.
Local mayor, governor, senators, the bigger the festival, the more people want to have a little bit to say about it.
Right.
So it definitely hits on all cylinders. But it was great. It was great success. And basically because of that festival, when all that kind of came tumbling down, that's the creation of Gulf Coast Jam. So, which is doing real well for us.
Yeah, so I've always liked um, talking to you and Mark about. Mark Sheldon is Rendy's business partner in Gulf Coast Jam and Sand Jam, rock festival that we do. Um, but it's pretty fascinating how you guys just kind of picked up, said we want to keep doing this, and where did you go from there?
Say that one more time. Let me understand the
So
question.
when after Bama Jam,
Yep.
you and Mark were kind of looking around to see what you wanted to do next.
We kind of took the perspective. We went and took at all of our ticket counts where people were coming from, and Bama Jam definitely was more of a local. It was a regional event, but it definitely was a local event since it was probably a 100-mile club where most of the people were from what they call the Wiregrass area. But when we saw that Bama Jam was coming to an end and there was not going to be a next phase, so to speak, of Bama Jam, we began to look for a central location. Well, one, you got to have a place that can actually house people of 20, 25,000 people. That's a work in progress, to say the least, because you can go to stadiums, you can go all this stuff, but you go to those places, you all of a sudden your food and beverage becomes a negotiable point, and all of a sudden I'm stuck with Coke, and I have a relationship with Pepsi, and then you have all these other different things that play into be. But it came down to tickets, and we started researching the areas where majority of our ticket holders outside of the Wiregrass area came from. And Panama City Beach and Panama City was definitely in the top 3 areas that we looked at. And we met with 3 other cities in the meantime, just talking to them and seeing their interest, because when you're coming and creating your own new festival, you're starting all over and you have to create believers from ground one. And we came to Panama City Beach, and without question, the tourism here had a high level of interest. And Dan Rowe, which is the head of tourism here in Panama City Beach, he's TDC chairman, he showed a lot of interest. The mayor showed a lot of interest, but at the same time, you have all the drama that you saw, the videos from Bama Jam, and all the stories behind the stories. And they were also scared of it. And Panama City Beach is notoriously known for its traffic issues, and people get on the strip and it slows down. So we had our issues coming in, we had our discussions and our negotiations, and our belief levels were conflicting in the sense that this city wanted us more, but this one would give us more money, and what became better for us. And the one thing that's always been a problem for us in Panama City Beach is the fact that half of our marketplace is crabs. It's water. You sit on the beach, well, that means you lose marketability. And you can only go so far on a radius to book a talent. So that was definitely an issue into what we were trying to do. But the reality is the city came to us and said, we believe in you. I mean, it literally put up our first $350,000 towards the festival. And it was a big statement at that point to do that. And we began to put together partners in lodging, because it's a funny thing. All your life, as a tour manager and as a manager, you're building a campaign to put butts in the seats, right? It's all about selling tickets. Well, all of a sudden we show down up here at Panama City, and all of a sudden learned this word, putting heads in the beds. So all of a sudden we became this event that was driven to put heads in the beds. So you're partnering with condos. There's 20-something thousand condos on the beach. So they're looking for ways to find it. And our first one we had Toby Keith and Trace Atkins and Brantley Gilbert. That was our first 3 headliners. And we did it in October, and we learned real fast it's not a good time to do a festival when it's cold outside at night, because for whatever reason, there's 3 ways to make money in the festival business. Just a little sidebar. First one is tickets, obviously. Second one is sponsorships. Third one, which becomes your livelihood, is liquid sales and food and beverage. So when it's cold outside, your beverage sales are not as strong because people aren't as encouraged to be drinkers of all liquids, as they are in September when it's 102 degrees outside. So we learned fast that that was got to be an issue, and we had to move it around. So it was a challenge, but when it came right down to it, it was the belief in the local marketplace that brought us here, and we had a large population of tickets that went to Bama Jam from this area. So when you sit there and you draw your little 120-mile club from around here, it encompassed Dothan, which was the Wiregrass from Bama Jam, and then it encompassed Pensacola, and it encompassed Tallahassee. So it gave us a different circle to market at. But the reality is our marketing became national as much as it was local, because in this case, being a destination, people come here from all over the world. We all of a sudden were marketing to Europe. We were marketing to France. We sell to 14 countries and to all 50 states. So it became a different type of marketing plan. So it became a very interesting process to build to where we are now, learning to put heads in the beds versus butts in the seats, and then trying to sell not just to a local market, because there's not that many people in the local market. So you begin to work, like in my contracts, I actually go beyond my 250-mile radius, but I have to sell, instead of tickets, I have to sell to Atlanta, because Atlanta's my biggest marketplace. Well, you would think they wouldn't come here. Well, I have this big old body of water out here that attracts people as much as anything. And I literally market in Atlanta, but I market, come get your condo package. And it becomes a condo package as well as a ticket. So promoters aren't worried, because they're going to have to spend $2,500 for a 5-day minimum stay to come down here to the beach anyway.
Right.
So that's
and a lot of that marketing too, that's the partnership with the city, because the city has their own tourist department, and they're out trying to sell the city, and you guys, we just partner with them. So as they're selling the city, they're also selling festivals for people to come Labor Day weekend.
It's a different machine too, because obviously when you're going to come spend 5 days on the beach and rent a 2 or 3 bedroom condo, you're going to spend quite a lot of money on that as well as the other. And so we found that the target market of our festival became a 35 to 44-year-old female with an average household income of 100 grand. Well, at Bama Jam, people would finance a 3-day general admission ticket with camping. So it was a whole different mindset to this festival. And all of a sudden we were appealing to that upper blue collar mindset, but we were also appealing to the lower white collar mindset. And they all like country music, but the reality is all of a sudden American Express was interested in being a part of my consumer, as well as Lexus and BMW, which are not normal country festival sponsors. So it's definitely been a repositioning of the mindset on finding national sponsors to be a part of our team and be a part of our growth pattern, as it was finding ways to sell tickets to the locals as well.
Right. So the first festival, and I don't know if it was the first one or the first two, you were doing multiple stages. You had the big stage in Frank Bound Park, and then you were also doing stages downtown, right? Or on the beach.
On the beach. Yeah, our thought process was people are going to come to town, they want to be on the beach, so let's give them music on the beach. Well, what we found out was people don't want to watch music on the beach. People want to be on the beach and lay out on the beach, or they want to go play golf, or they want to go fishing, or they want to go do whatever they want to do. So we were competing with things they come to Panama City Beach to do. And when they want to lay on the beach, they don't necessarily want to have a bunch of people listening to music. So the first year we actually had 3 stages on the beach spread out across the city at 3 of our big lodging partners. And we didn't have anybody show up hardly. We had a couple hundred people per stage, but when you're, trying to market to 30,000 people, a couple hundred people, it became an expense that was not really worthy of your attention. So we actually, the second year, we dropped it back to 1 stage. They still didn't go. So, stupid. Don't take a 2x4 to realize they just really don't want to see music on the beach. They want to be on the beach. Right. So we dropped it and we started our show at 2:00 in the afternoon compared to earlier in the day. And people just show up, the sun goes down, and all of a sudden you got 25,000 people in the park going crazy. So we just learned to embrace our competition being the ocean and the beach and the great things about Panama City Beach that we were not trying to fight, but we were trying to accommodate, thinking that's what accommodated them. And you listen to your critics, you might find out a way to be successful. So we struck out the beaches. We got it down to 2 stages. We have an entry stage where people are walking in. You got thousands of people that are coming in through the park at the entrance, and they have bands playing out there. And then we have the main stage opens up at 3 o'clock, and we play to midnight. So it makes for a good day.
It does make, and it's another way to work with the city to encourage people to go to restaurants, to go to play golf, go play putt-putt, go ride go-karts, do whatever you want to do, and then head over to the park at 2 o'clock.
Absolutely. And I think we found it worked that way. It worked that way better. And honestly, if people had a big time at a party the night before, it gave them time to recover, so to speak. Just having the mornings off ended up being a great thing to do.
Right. All right. So then we get to 2018, and you decide to do a rock festival on the beach.
Yeah. I mean, Panama City Beach has millions of people that comes through the we call it through the gates here over the summertime. And our theory was, we started out with a festival called Spring Jam that was country, and it was in the spring. But we ended up finding out that we were competing with ourselves at Gulf Coast Jam, because I'd be booking talent to play Spring Jam, and I had Rascal Flatts, I had Darius Rucker, and I'm going, what am I doing? This is stupid. This is people that need to be playing main stage at Gulf Coast Jam. And so we went to the city and said, let's try something different. Let's try something new. And the first year, we put our rock show together, and we said, let's try to literally bookend the beach. So we start with a party and we end with a party, because that's basically the process. And it was fearful at first, because we thought, this is predominantly country music. If you go around and you see the radio charts around the different marketplaces, it definitely has the leading radio would either be urban or it's country. So it was definitely something worthy of doing a different perspective about it, but we just didn't know if they'd show up. So we went around the first year, and we saw, lo and behold, that not one ticket buyer for Gulf Coast Jam bought a ticket for Sand Jam. Not one. They didn't cross at all, which kind of surprised us, but it actually excited the city, because they were excited about that, because they're expanding to 2 different marketplaces. We found the household income stayed the same. Just the people that listened to this music didn't listen to that music. And to this day, all these years later, we still have very few people that buy between the 2 festivals. It's either your alternative, adult, rock, whatever you want to call it, festival, or your country festival. And most people don't like either one or the other. They just, I don't want to go to country festival. Well, don't go. So it's worked out to be a really good thing for us. It really has.
Yeah. So the first 2 years, right in the sand, 2 stages on the beach. What were the challenges with that?
Well, let's just put it this way. 60,000-pound semis don't roll in sand very well. It does present a problem. We knew we had to figure out a way to build a transportation system on the beach. We talked to other festivals. It's funny. Festivals don't like to talk to each other, because it's almost like they feel like they're giving away some of their secrets. And there's other festivals around here on the beach, close to us, that are fairly substantial, and they didn't want to give us any inside information. So we kind of had to learn from stadium people, trying to figure out how to maneuver trucks over soft areas. Like when you go to a football stadium, they protect their turf. So how do they protect their turf to put up all the stages during, off season? So we got introduced to this little world called Duradeck, which is the better way to say it's plastic plywood. And we began to build a city out of plastic plywood, and build roads to the beach and on the beach with plastic plywood. Only problem is if you roll off of that plastic plywood, you have a real issue. So, I mean, we learned through process, and we learned through success that it was a great place to have the event. The atmosphere is a whole different world than a normal concert. I mean, you go sit out in the middle of Sand Jam and you literally are 50 feet from the water, and yet you're sitting here with some of the greatest acts in country, I mean, rock music playing right in front of you, and which blows people's minds around here because this is definitely not a marketplace where big rock acts play at. So, I mean, you come in here and you have Sublime and Rome, or you have Kings of Leon, or Third Eye Blind, or they don't play in Panama City Beach. So when you have these big acts, and I wish I could tell you who's going to be in Sand Jam this year because it's the biggest acts we've ever had, and that's not until October. But it's definitely been a process to learn how to do things on the beach, and then it becomes weight issues with the productions that these bigger acts bring. But it was definitely beautiful, and it definitely showcased the beautiful beaches here, which is a big thing for the city, and tourism. And I mean, it really has. It's been a great process of learning how to do festivals on the beach. That becomes a process to itself.
Right. But unfortunately, with the past year, it canceled last year.
Yep.
This year, instead of playing the end of April, you had to move it to October 1st through 3rd. I guess we can talk about turtles.
Can't piss off the turtles, Greg.
Yeah. A lot of people, some people know that, some don't. Because we had to move it to October, it's around the turtle hatching time, so you can't have lights and equipment and, like Rendy said, semi trucks in the sand around turtle hatching. So we had to move it to the beginning of October. And I don't even know who's playing yet.
No, I'm not going to tell you because you're a publicist and you tell people.
That's my job, man.
It was definitely a process, and I mean, honestly, Sand Jam ends the last week of April. So we actually have a problem because we have to take everything down in a few days just to keep things safe from the turtles starting this turtle season then. And so turtles are very important around here. They're very, they have a lot of pressure there on the beach. And so we just figured out it'd be better just to move on and not let that happen.
Right.
So that's my Rottweiler kicking up back there.
Every year, at least the years that I've been involved, every year has presented different challenges. So the first year I was involved actually got canceled because of a hurricane that blew in. Now, talk about just the emotions you went through building this city, and then
the year the hurricane canceled us, which one of the first events. And if you don't know if you know this, but after we got canceled that year, it was just an unusual weather year. And a lot of events, I think Pilgrimage Festival got canceled that year as well because of bad weather. And I mean, it's hard to describe it. I've been asked by tons of media to what was it like, and the only thing I can compare it to is getting married. And you plan for a year for a wedding, and you have all the details taken care of, you know exactly what's going to go on. And in this case, we literally built the place where we were getting married. We actually had everything up. Tents were up, main stage was up, everything was up. And the hurricane was going to miss us at first. And then the night before the show, the hurricane took a turn and was coming straight at Panama City Beach. I'll never forget waking up to the chief of police and the mayor banging on my bus door saying, we got to shut this thing down. So literally, we had about 12 hours before the winds were supposed to pick up. And, you have a 195-foot stage, 85 feet tall, and you have 300 tents. High winds is not a good thing to be around when you have all that going on. And we learned that from the hard way from other storms that I've been a part of. So weather definitely scares me to death. and we literally had to take it down. And I remember sitting there, it was on CNN. They were interviewing us about the cancellation of the festival, and I just lost it. Because you sit there and you literally work year round for 3 days. You said it at the beginning, kind of a joking way, but it's the truth. Your whole year is funded on 3 days of business. In those 3 days, you basically live or die for the rest of your year, and to have it pulled out from under you and have it canceled by pulling your permit. I mean, you don't have a choice. It's an act of God. It's a hurricane, but you're sitting there and it's like you're standing there at the altar, and I compare it to a wedding, and the bride never shows up. And I don't know any other way to describe it, because you're prepared to do it. You're prepared to have the show, and they pull it from you. And man, I mean, talking about devastation. I saw on CNN, I just cried like a baby. Yeah. Of course, I'm sick. People don't know this. I'm 6'5", and back then I was almost 350 pounds. So it's like seeing this big old boy crying. They were like, "Oh, I can walk into rooms, some of my industry people who I see online going, I'll walk in a room and I hear them start going." So you never live things down. You never.
Nobody will blame you for that. That's for sure.
But it was tragic. It was tragic. But you know what? I mean, that's why you have insurance. But I'll say this: Lloyd's of London stays in business because they're not nice people. Did I say that out loud? Yeah.
They don't build big buildings by saying yes.
That's right.
Or writing checks.
So it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
But this year,
that was one challenge. The next one, and you kind of alluded to it, the Indiana State Fair with the stage collapse. So that made you step back and take a look at our stage.
Yep. Well, honestly, the last year of Bama Jam, they had a massive storm, tornadoes come through the town, and I actually saw our stage lift off the ground 2 foot and throw back down to the ground. So weather is very intimidating to me, because I know after the state fair that if the bottom line is, it's the promoter's decision, because the artists are sitting there going, "Hey, I'm here to play, so you're paying me," and the promoter's sitting there going, "Well, if I don't, what am I going to do? Because if I cancel the show, the money's on me." And you have this big game of who's paying and who's getting paid, and all that's going on at the same time. So I kind of made a decision after Indiana, that I got to do the right thing to protect to protect consumers, and I'll sort it out later. Because I mean, as you know, we had to evacuate 23,000 people one night because we had a lightning storm come through, and we had to literally exit everybody out of the park. But I tell you something, I'd rather live with that on my conscience and go bankrupt than to live on the fact that one person was hurt or even killed.
Right.
It's just something I deal with. But yeah, it's a very intimidating factor.
Yeah. I think it was either 18 or 19. We evacuated every day.
Yeah, every day there's a portion of it. 18.
Yeah.
18 was good.
Yeah. All right, then hate to even bring it up, Route 91, that happens. What do you look at after a situation like that?
Well, geez, I mean, Panama City Beach, if there's a building under 18 stories, it's very few, you know? So it was all of a sudden I'm getting interviewed by every channel in the freaking country saying, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" Well, the reality is, what happened is something in security business you don't even think about coming from the top down. You always thought about my perimeter. Is my perimeter secured? Do I have all the blockades in place? And all of a sudden now we're not dealing with just a perimeter, we're dealing with literally overhead. And I mean, all of a sudden I became into a new word that encountered called risk management. And all of a sudden we had a team that we had brought on that was from Homeland Security, from the Sheriff's Department, from the Police Department, from the, in our case, Florida, FDLE. I mean, it became all of a sudden not just my decision. And all of a sudden I'm dealing with words like snipers and terrorism. I mean, Craig, I've always had weather cancellation. I've always had liability, but all of a sudden I'm introduced to the word terrorism insurance. And I'm going, what the hell? Terrorism insurance? Are you kidding me? And then from that day forward, I mean, you began to think of not only front, back, and east and west, so to speak. You're dealing with north and south. And when we do Sand Jam, I literally have to have a piece of machinery that I probably can't tell you what it is, but goes through the sand digging up to test to see if there's bombs in the sand, because they're saying a terrorist could come in there now and plant a bomb 6 months before they use it, and nobody would ever know. And it's like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden you have to think of these things. And now you come into COVID, which, I mean, we were blessed or cursed, however you want to say it. We were always picked to be the one to do the show. I mean, all your big concert companies are going, hey, you're disposable, you do it, you know, and you got all these concert companies that are publicly traded or whatever. And all of a sudden I said, yeah, I'll do it. So, I mean, we had to reschedule Gulf Coast Jam twice. And finally we worked out a plan, and we had to deal with insurance. We had to deal with everything. I mean, all of a sudden, it's not just a matter of whether you're going to pay or not going to pay. It's a matter of, what is the protocol to be safe? What is the protocol that everybody can live with? At one time, Craig, we were going to have to test literally 25,000 people, and then halfway through the event, test them again, because the test was only good for 3 days. And you start doing the math, and at the time they didn't know who was going to cover it, if it was going to be a COVID relief thing or if it's going to be us. I mean, we're looking at a $500,000 expense to test twice people coming in the park to make sure, because our surveys were kept telling us the one thing they want to know is when they're sitting in their seat, they're safe. So I can sit here, and it's like after Vegas, one thing they want to know is that they're safe, because all of a sudden it's not just looking around to see if your person next to you's got a gun. You're looking at like, wow, there's a 18-story building over there. Is there somebody up there? And now all of a sudden, it's not just security forces and undercover police. Now I have snipers all throughout my property. I have dogs that walk around smelling oxygen and smelling different things that could be bombs or be some sort of terrorism related things. And then we have a Homeland Security agent that works for us now, or with us now, that they have to check people out that come from different countries that are on a suspicious list. So all of a sudden now we have to have people that watch people and know where they are. And literally we had people, this Gulf Coast Jam, being examined 2 days before, being questioned, why are you in the area? And it's become a whole different world. And it's who would have ever thought of COVID as a reality? Who would have ever thought that something would have come along and shut all the music business down completely? I mean, it was 20 months between the last time we did Gulf Coast Jam and the time we did it again, after 2 cancellations.
Right.
The same festival, by the way.
I will say, I want to say this. A lot of people look at the lockdown, especially for live entertainment, from March of last year. But you and Mark had a festival September 2019, and then didn't make a penny until 2 weeks ago.
And we spent money.
Yeah.
From the festival before, because you never saw, when you get sponsorship money, you begin to write checks, you begin to write different things, and you don't think that somebody's going to walk in one day and all of a sudden go, you can't have this festival. You can't. I mean, this person out of Washington's canceling my festival, and I'm like, who the hell are you? I mean, this is my life. I mean, when we made the decision, and not to get political, but I mean, we have the greatest governor to be in the music business in the world, because he has helped us, because honestly, our protocol changed literally 4 times. And it wasn't just us making the decision. It was the artists. They were hands-on in the decision. It was the agents. It was lawyers and managers. And it was a group of people committed to the cause, but it was a group of people that were also very liably conscious, if that makes sense. And I'm just sitting here after 2 years going, okay, everybody can vote whatever they need to vote. I got to have a show. I mean, I'm not going to mention a magazine, but I got a magazine that got all up in my Kool-Aid literally 2 weeks ago, right before the show happened, and said, how could you do this? Well, because I have employees, I have a career, I have bills to pay. I don't have anybody knocking on my door saying, here, take this money for free. I don't have that. So I mean, we were at a place where we had to have it. And fortunately, all the numbers lined up to where our COVID protocol worked out. We did not have one person test for COVID because they failed the surveys that we had to have. So, and so far it's been over a week and a half and there's been no increase of COVID activity because of the festival. So I'd like to believe that everything played its place of accountability. One of the things I'm probably jumping ahead, but I'm looking at the time and I know we got a 5-minute cutoff here, but the reality is we did a survey and they had a MMA fight in Orlando, I believe it was, had 16,000 people at it. And they did a survey and they basically, in the survey, it was the basic 5 questions. You know, have you been exposed to COVID? Do you have any symptoms of COVID? Are you running a fever? And you go down the list. And then the last thing you did was check a box that said, I understand the COVID protocol for this event and I don't hold you liable. Because that was the biggest fear we all faced. All the artists, all the managers, all the producers, everybody is, if somebody dies from COVID and they want to say it's us, what is our liability? Of course, the governor stepped in again and really did a number for us as there as well. But before you could come into our gate, you had to test. You had to go in and take the survey. You had to answer all those questions. And if you answered that question in any negative form whatsoever, you had to take a test. And we actually had a test on site that you could take. We didn't have one person take a test. Now, is that naive? I don't think so. I think everybody, I think everybody's conscious of it. I'd like to think that. And I think everybody's aware of it. And I think it worked because our surveys were there. Now we also did things. We have a company we're partnered with called 3P America, which is a hand sanitizer that's supposedly good for 9 hours. And then we sprayed everything down that's supposedly good for 3 weeks that kills any kind of bacteria. It's probably the safest festival as far as just strep throat there was, because we tried to make it as safe as possible. But even then, you can sit there and plan for COVID, you could plan for snipers, you can plan for every kind of security event. But this year, Jesus, we had a whole nother situation happen on Saturday night that honestly, in 35 years of business, scared me worse than anything I've ever been afraid of. We had a seaplane that came in and circled the venue 3 times. And then he began to get altitude and then nose down right at the crowd. And I'm sitting here watching this literally unfold, thinking it's surreal. What in the heck is about to happen? And then this guy pulls up, he literally pulls up. They said it was about 250 feet off the crowd and dumps out about, 1,000 koozies that advertises his airplane school. But in the middle of all that, all your theories, it's funny. It's like every football game, every play that you have on a football field is designed to score a touchdown. It literally has every perfect block. Well, you talk about strategies of security and element. Well, here all of a sudden, we're looking at a plane nosing into the festival grounds. And I looked at, we call it our circle of life. I literally had 3 police officers, 4 sheriff's officers, and a Homeland Security officer. And we were literally in a circle. And I looked at each person and everybody was calm. Everybody was on the phone with everybody from the FBI to the Homeland Security to the aviation FAA. Thank you, Craig. It was crazy, but it was calm. We had a plan. We held the show up. We stopped. We had Cole Swindle about to go on stage. He stayed on his bus. And the funny thing is, through the whole crisis, everybody thought it was part of the show and they were loving it. And I'm sitting back there changing my britches 3 times because I thought this plane was going into the crowd. Yeah, you were right there too. But it was just, you plan and you can plan and plan and plan. And we were worried about COVID and all of a sudden somebody went, what's the weather going to be like? And I went, oh crap, I didn't even thought about the weather. And then you go, that was a plane coming into my festival grounds. So now we've added a helicopter because this plane itself literally was flying underneath the radar, so nobody saw it coming. Our sniper, one of our sniper units, saw it coming in the distance, watched it come in. He wasn't answering radio calls, so nobody was communicating with him. And this dumb person literally threw these koozies out, put his cell phone number on the koozie, and they pinged the plane from his cell phone. That's how we got a hold of him. But it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, and he's going to be in jail for a whole long time, and good for him.
Yeah.
But I mean, you plan, and you just have to be on your feet and be able to react to something.
Right. Crazy. We are pretty much out of time. We have Gulf Coast Jam number 9 happening September
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. Sorry.
Less than 90 days.
We have too many festivals in a row. And then Sand Jam October 1st through 3rd. So help us spread the word. And thanks so much for being here.
The Rottweiler wants me to take him out.
Hey, let me jump in here for a minute, Craig, and just say thank you very much to both of you. Rendy, this has been fascinating, just listening to your stories and most especially the learnings that you have endeavored over the last year. Thank you for hanging in there, man. Holy smokes. And then all the contingency planning that you've done, and then you've got a damn seaplane that buzzes your festival. I mean, where is that on page 38 of the manual? I mean,
We actually wrote a new chapter for that one.
What the hell? I mean, that's crazy.
Yes.
So glad that it had a happy ending, but what a knucklehead. And he's lucky he wasn't shot down by a fighter pilot.
Honestly, it was a thought. It was a thought to do that. The problem was he was over a populated area, and if you shoot him down, where's the plane going to end up going?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was literally thought of. It was one of the snipers actually had all we had. I mean, if they would have given him the go shoot, they call it go shoot. If he got the go shoot signal, they'd have shot him. But again, where is he going to end up going after he's shot? So it becomes a whole different thing. So now we have a helicopter that literally is on site, that if something like that was to happen now, he'd go up in the air and he'd cut him off. He would not let him come to the crowd. And it will be an armed helicopter.
Amen.
Crazy.
Well, Craig, thank you very much for hosting this. Rendy, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you both. I hope you have continued success in all these events this year, folks. Get your ass a vaccination so you can go attend some of these events safely, please. And with that, I shall sign off and just say be nice to each other, and we will see you next week at 1 p.m. featuring my good friend Michael Weintraub and Jeff Coffin. Anyone who knows who Jeff Coffin is? Yes, it's that Jeff Coffin, the saxophonist for the Dave Matthews Band, among other things. Anyway, we will see you then. Thank you to Craig and Rendy, and thank you to the audience. Take care, folks. Be safe.